True mates are destined by the moon goddess herself. Nothing can break that sacred bond. That's what Sierra's mother whispered to her on every full moon, pressing a hand to her heart as if the truth lived there. But when you watch your best friend walk down the aisle toward the man whose wolf calls to yours, you learn that destiny is just another word for cruelty. And when the most powerful alpha in 5 territories looks past the golden girl to bow before the broken one, you learn that some bonds are forged not in moonlight, but in blood, betrayal, and the ashes of everything you thought you knew. Chapter 1. The Invisible Omega. The scent hit Sarah 3 days before the wedding. She was scrubbing the great hall floors on her hands and knees as usual, when it rolled through the pack house like thunder. Pine and steel. Smoke and midnight rain. Her wolf surged inside her chest, clawing, howling, screaming with a recognition that made her bones ache. Mate. The scrub brush clattered from her hand. Soap suds pooled around her knees, but Sarah couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything except shake as her wolf threw itself against her ribcage like it wanted to tear through skin and bone to reach him. Sarah! Her stepmother Vivian's voice cracked like a whip. Why have you stopped? The Alpha King arrives in 2 hours, and you expect me to present him with dirty floors? Sarah forced her head down, forced her wolf down, forced everything down into that deep, dark place where she kept all the things that hurt too much to feel. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll finish. You'll do more than finish. Vivian's designer heels clicked closer. My daughter is marrying Beta Thomas tomorrow. The Alpha King himself is attending. Do you understand what this means for our pack? For our family? Our family. As if Sarah had ever been part of it. Yes, ma'am. Then work faster. And for the goddess's sake, try not to be seen. You know how you upset Delilah when you remind her of... Vivian waved a manicured hand vaguely. Well, your unfortunate existence. Sarah's wolf snarled, but she kept her face blank, kept her eyes down, kept scrubbing. She'd perfected the art of invisibility over 23 years. What was one more day? But that scent, God, that scent wouldn't leave her. It wrapped around her throat like a collar, suffocating and intoxicating all at once. Her wolf kept whispering, "Find him. Find him. Find him." She couldn't. She wouldn't. Because Sarah knew exactly what happened to Omegas who forgot their place. The pack house erupted into chaos 2 hours later, when the motorcade arrived. Sarah watched from the kitchen window as wolves in formal dress lined the driveway, their heads bowed in submission. The Silvercrest pack wasn't particularly powerful mid-tier at best, but Vivian had spent months engineering this alliance. Beta Thomas was a good match. Decent rank, decent looks, decent prospects. And Delilah was perfect. Tall, blonde, beautiful, a beta-ranked wolf with a silver tongue and her mother's ruthless ambition. Everything Sarah wasn't. The car doors opened. Beta Thomas emerged first, all easy smiles and political charm, then the guards. Then, Sarah's breath stopped. He was massive. Easily 6'4", with broad shoulders that seemed to block out the sun. Dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes like molten amber that swept across the crowd with predatory focus. The wolves around him practically vibrated with submission, their wolves recognizing apex power when they saw it. Alpha King Thorn Ashford, ruler of the Northern Territories, unmated, untouchable, undefeated. And when the wind shifted, carrying his scent directly through the kitchen window, Sarah's wolf didn't just howl. It screamed, "Mate, mate, mine." "No," Sarah whispered, gripping the windowsill until her knuckles turned white. "No, no, no. Sarah." A sharp hiss from the doorway. Vivian stood there, her face twisted with disgust. "What are you doing? Get away from that window. Do you want to embarrass us? I don't care." Vivian grabbed her arm, nails digging through the thin fabric of Sarah's worn dress. "Go to the basement. Stay there until I call for you. The Alpha King cannot see you. Do you understand? If Delilah's wedding is ruined because you decided to play Cinderella, I understand." Sarah pulled away, ignoring the half-moon cuts Vivian's nails left on her skin. "I'll stay out of sight." She fled down the narrow servants' stairs, her heart hammering. The basement was cold and damp, filled with old storage boxes and forgotten things. Like her, Sierra pressed her back against the wall and slid down until she sat on the concrete floor. Her wolf was going insane, throwing itself against her control, begging her to go back upstairs, to run to him, to claim what was theirs. But Sarah had learned long ago that wanting something didn't make it yours. The first time she'd met Delilah, Sarah was 6 years old. Her father had just died. A rogue attack, they said. He'd fought bravely. He'd saved 3 packmates. He'd died a hero. He'd also died broke. And Sarah's mother, sweet, gentle Omega Rosa, had no family, no money, no way to raise a child alone. So Vivian had offered, "Marry my son," she'd said to Rosa. "Gregory needs a mother for Delilah, and you need security." It's practical. Practical. That word had defined Sarah's entire childhood. The marriage lasted 6 months before Rosa died. Pneumonia, the pack doctor said. But Sarah had seen the bruises, had heard the arguments, had watched her mother fade away like smoke, grief and mistreatment hollowing her out from the inside. After that, there was no pretense. Vivian made it clear. Sarah was the help, the charity case, the reminder of Gregory's mistake in marrying beneath his station. And Delilah? Delilah had been raised to believe she deserved everything. The best clothes, the best education, the best mate. She'd grown into a woman who smiled like sunshine and cut like glass. "You're my best friend," Delilah would say, looping her arm through Sarah's at pack gatherings. "Isn't she sweet? And I weigh," she'd tell others, "so loyal, so grateful for everything we've done for her." And everyone would smile and nod, and see exactly what Delilah wanted them to see. The generous beta-ranked wolf and her pitiful omega companion. No one saw the cruelty, the casual dismissals, the way Delilah borrowed anything Sarah cared about and never returned it. The way she'd stolen Sarah's first crush, her first kiss, her first everything, just because she could. "I'm doing you a favor," Delilah had said once, when Sarah finally worked up the courage to protest. "Teaching you that omegas don't get happy endings. Better you learn now than waste your life hoping." So Sarah had stopped hoping, stopped wanting, stopped feeling, until 3 days ago, when that scent rolled through the pack house and her wolf remembered what it meant to be alive. A knock on the basement door made her jump. "Sarah?" A male voice. Young. Nervous. Vivian wants you upstairs. They need help serving dinner." Of course. Because the regular staff wasn't enough. They needed the Omega to remind everyone of their own superiority. Sarah stood, brushed off her dress, and climbed the stairs. The formal dining room was a spectacle of wealth. Crystal chandeliers, silk tablecloths, enough silverware to feed a small army. The pack's elite sat around the table in their finest clothes, laughing and drinking and celebrating the upcoming wedding. And at the head of the table, directly across from where Delilah sat in a dress that probably cost more than Sarah had earned in her entire life, was Alpha King Thorn. He hadn't touched his food. His amber eyes tracked every movement in the room with the cold precision of a predator assessing prey. "Sarah." Vivian snapped her fingers. "Wine. Now." Sarah grabbed the bottle from the sideboard, willing her hands not to shake. She could do this. She'd done this 1,000 times. Just pour the wine, keep her head down, and disappear. She started at the far end of the table, working her way closer to the Alpha King. His scent grew stronger with every step, and her wolf clawed harder, and Sarah's control began to slip like sand through her fingers. "Don't look at him. Don't look at him. Don't." "Sarah, darling." Delilah's voice rang out, sweet as poisoned honey. "Come pour for our honored guest." Every head turned, including his. Sarah's feet moved on autopilot, carrying her to stand beside the Alpha King. Up close, he was even more devastating. Sharp features carved from stone, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, and those eyes, God, those eyes seemed to see straight through every wall she'd ever built. She lifted the bottle, poured carefully, didn't spill a drop, and then his hand moved, so fast she barely saw it, and caught her wrist. The touch burned like lightning. Like recognition. Like home. Every wolf in the room froze. Alpha King Thorn stared at their joined hands, his expression unreadable. Then slowly, so slowly the air itself seemed to hold its breath. He lifted his gaze to Sarah's face. You, he said. Just that one word. Rough as gravel, and the entire room shattered, because they all knew what it meant. They all heard it in his voice, saw it in the way his wolf surged into his eyes, turning them pure molten gold. Mate. Delilah's wine glass hit the table. That's no. No. Thorn, you can't possibly, she's just an Omega. But the Alpha King didn't look away. His grip on Sarah's wrist tightened. Not painful, but possessive. Claiming. Your name, he demanded. Sarah, she whispered. Sarah Blackwood. Sarah. He said it like a prayer, like a promise, like the most important word he'd ever spoken. Then he stood, everyone else scrambling to their feet in response, and did something that would shatter Sarah's world more completely than any betrayal that came before. Alpha King Thorn Ashford, ruler of the Northern Territories, the most powerful wolf in 500 miles, dropped to one knee before her, and bowed his head in submission. My mate, he said. My queen. Chapter 2, The Golden Cage. The silence lasted exactly 3 heartbeats. Then Delilah screamed. Not a scream of fear or surprise, Sarah had heard those before. This was rage, pure, crystalline fury that shattered every pretense of grace Delilah had ever worn. No. She lunged across the table, sending plates and glasses crashing. Beta Thomas caught her around the waist, but she fought like a wild thing. She doesn't get this. She doesn't get you. I'm the Beta. I'm the one who… Delilah! Vivian's voice cracked like thunder. But for once her daughter didn't listen. Sarah stood frozen, the Alpha King's hand still wrapped around her wrist, his body still bowed before her. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to apologize, to make herself small again. But his grip held her in place like an anchor. Stand up, she whispered. Please, you don't have to. I kneel before my mate. Thorn's voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. Before my queen. There is no shame in honoring what the moon goddess has given me. He rose then, still holding her wrist, and turned to face the room. Every wolf there immediately dropped their eyes in submission except Delilah, who stared at Sarah with such hatred it felt like acid. The wedding tomorrow is cancelled, Thorn announced. His tone allowed no argument. I will be returning to the Northern Territories with my mate. Preparations will be made immediately. Your Majesty. Vivian had recovered her composure, though her smile looked like broken glass. Surely you understand this is unexpected. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. Sarah is well, she's not exactly. Are you questioning the moon goddess's choice? Thorn's eyes flashed gold. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Are you suggesting my mate is unworthy? No. Of course not. I merely meant… Vivian's carefully constructed mask cracked. She's an Omega. She has no training, no education in pack politics, no understanding of what it means to be. She is mine. 3 words, spoken with such finality that Vivian actually stepped back. And anyone who suggests otherwise will answer to me personally. Sarah's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to girls like her. The universe didn't suddenly decide to rewrite the story and make the broken Omega into a queen. I need. Her voice came out as a croak. She cleared her throat and tried again. I need air. Please. Thorn's expression softened immediately. He released her wrist, though she could see how much it cost him. His wolf clearly wanted to maintain contact, to keep claiming, to never let go. Of course. He gestured toward the terrace doors. I'll accompany you. No. Sarah took a step back, her mind spinning. I just need a moment alone. To think. It's a lot. For a second, she thought he'd refuse. But then he nodded once, sharp and controlled. 5 minutes. Then I'm coming to find you. It wasn't a request. Sarah fled through the terrace doors and into the night. The garden was her only sanctuary in this house, the one place Vivian and Delilah rarely bothered with because it required actual work to maintain. Sarah had spent years coaxing roses and moonflowers to grow here, finding peace in the dirt and growing things. Now she collapsed onto the stone bench near the fountain, pressing her hands to her face. What just happened? Her wolf was ecstatic, practically glowing with joy. Mate found us. Mate claimed us. Mate is ours. But Sarah's human mind wouldn't stop spinning. This was Alpha King Thorn Ashford. He could have anyone. Anyone? And the moon goddess paired him with… what? A broken Omega who scrubbed floors and slept in a basement room and had never in her entire life been chosen for anything good? There has to be a mistake, she whispered. No mistake, little wolf. Sarah's head snapped up. Thorn stood at the garden entrance, backlit by the house lights. He'd given her exactly 5 minutes. I said I needed to be alone. You said you needed air and time to think. You've had both. He moved closer, each step controlled and predatory. Now we talk. There's nothing to talk about. Sarah stood, wrapping her arms around herself. You're the Alpha King. I'm nobody. This bond, whatever this is, it won't work. Why? The simple question threw her. What do you mean, why? Look at me. Look at what I am. I am. His gaze traveled over her slowly, and there was nothing cold in it now. I see my mate. I see strength that survived when it should have broken. I see a woman who tends gardens in a house where she's treated like dirt. I see someone who doesn't believe she deserves good things. Tears burned in Sarah's eyes. You don't know anything about me. Then tell me. He stopped a few feet away, giving her space but not retreating. Tell me why you flinch when your stepmother speaks. Tell me why you pour wine at your stepsister's engagement dinner instead of sitting at the table. Tell me why an unmated wolf lives in a pack house but hides in the basement. Because that's where I belong. The words burst out of her, raw and ugly. That's where I've always belonged. I'm the charity case, the unwanted Omega, the reminder of a mistake. And now you want me to believe I'm supposed to be a queen? You want me to believe that the moon goddess looked at broken, pathetic Sarah Blackwood and thought, yes, she's perfect for the most powerful alpha in the territories? Her voice cracked on the last word. She was shaking now, years of suppressed pain and rage and grief pouring out like poison. I don't believe in fairy tales, she finished, her voice dropping to a whisper. I stopped believing a long time ago. Thorn was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle in a way that made her chest ache. My parents were true mates, he said, fated, destined. All the romantic nonsense, the story's promise. And for 10 years they were happy. Then rogues attacked our territory. My father died protecting the pack. And my mother. He paused, and Sarah saw the ghost of old pain cross his face. My mother survived 3 days before her grief killed her. The mate bond snapped. And she simply stopped. Stopped eating. Stopped breathing. Stopped wanting to exist in a world where he didn't. Sarah's breath caught. She'd heard stories about bonded mates dying of grief, but she'd always thought they were exaggerations. I was 12, Thorn continued, and I spent the next 15 years believing the mate bond was a curse, a weakness, something that gave fate the power to destroy you. He took a step closer. So when your scent hit me 3 days ago, I tried to ignore it. Tried to convince myself I was mistaken. Tried to pretend the moon goddess hadn't just handed me the one thing I swore I'd never want. 3 days ago. Sarah's mind raced. But you didn't arrive until today. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. I was doing advanced security for Beta Thomas's wedding. Staying in the guest house at the edge of your pack's territory. And on my last night there, the wind shifted, and I caught the scent of honey and wildflowers and home. His eyes locked on hers. I've spent 3 days trying to convince myself to leave, to reject this bond before it could form completely, to stay the cold, controlled Alpha King who doesn't need anyone. So why didn't you? The question came out barely audible. Because the moment I saw you, I knew. He closed the distance between them, slowly enough that she could retreat if she wanted. She didn't. I knew that every choice I'd made, every battle I'd fought, every moment of loneliness I'd endured, it was all leading to you. And I knew that I would burn this entire world down before I let anyone tell me you weren't worthy of standing beside me. His hand came up, cupping her cheek with a gentleness that made her want to weep. You think you're broken, little wolf? I've been shattered and reforged so many times I've lost count. You think you're unwanted? I've spent 15 years making sure no one could get close enough to want me. You think you're nothing? His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, catching a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. You're everything. And I'm terrified. Of what? Sierra whispered. Of how much I already need you. The confession sounded like it was torn from somewhere deep. Of how much power you have to destroy me. Of how completely I'm going to fail at staying controlled and distant. And safe. For the first time in her life, Sierra saw herself reflected in someone else's eyes. Not as weak or pathetic or unwanted, but as someone just as scared, just as broken, just as desperate to believe that maybe good things could happen to people like them. I don't know how to be a queen, she said softly. I don't know how to be a mate. His forehead touched hers, and the contact sent sparks racing down her spine. So we'll figure it out together. It was the together that broke her. Sarah surged up and kissed him. It wasn't graceful or practiced or anything like the romance novels she'd secretly read. It was desperate and clumsy and tasted like salt from her tears. But Thorn caught her, his arms banding around her waist, like he'd been waiting his entire life for permission to hold her. The mate bond snapped into place with the force of lightning. Sarah gasped against his mouth as golden light exploded behind her eyelids. She could feel him now, not just his physical presence, but his emotions, his wolf, his soul tangling with hers until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. Mine. His wolf growled into her mind. Mine, her wolf answered, fierce and possessive and finally whole. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Thorn's eyes had gone completely gold. His wolf was right at the surface, barely controlled. We should go back inside, Sarah managed. We should. But he didn't move, just kept holding her like she might disappear if he let go. Delilah is going to make my life hell. Delilah can try. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. She'll fail. Sarah wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe this was real, that she could actually have this. That the universe hadn't just set her up for the cruelest joke of all. But as they walked back toward the house, hand in hand, Sarah caught a glimpse of Delilah standing at an upstairs window. Her stepsister's face was twisted with such hatred, such rage, such malicious determination, that Sarah's blood went cold. The moon goddess had given her a mate. But Delilah had never forgiven anyone for taking what she thought was hers. And Sarah knew, with cold certainty, that this story was far from over. Chapter 3. The Price of Destiny. The pack house felt like a war zone when they returned. Vivian had corralled the dinner guests into the sitting room, her voice a constant stream of apologies and explanations. Such an unexpected honor. Of course we're thrilled. Yes, the wedding will need to be rescheduled. Beta Thomas is being very understanding. Beta Thomas, for his part, looked like a man who'd just dodged an execution. His relief at not having to marry into whatever fresh hell this had become was almost comical. But Delilah was nowhere to be seen. Your Majesty. Vivian appeared in the hallway, her composure paper-thin. I've prepared the master suite for you and… She couldn't quite bring herself to say Sarah's name. For your comfort. I'm sure you'll want to rest after such an eventful evening. Sarah will need her belongings moved to my quarters immediately, Thorn said, his hand still wrapped around Sarah's. Everything she owns, tonight. Vivian's smile turned brittle. Of course. Though I'm afraid Sarah doesn't have much. We've provided her with the essentials, naturally, but as an Omega, her needs have been quite modest. Then we'll acquire what she needs. Thorn's voice could have cut glass. Send someone to pack whatever she has. Now. It wasn't a request. Vivian's lips pressed into a thin line, but she nodded and gestured to a nearby servant. The young wolf scurried off toward the basement stairs. If I may speak freely, Your Majesty. Vivian's tone had shifted to something almost conspiratorial. Sarah is… well, she's quite inexperienced in pack politics. The responsibilities of a queen are substantial. Perhaps it would be wise to delay the formal claiming ceremony until she's had proper training? I'd be happy to provide instruction, of course, to ensure she doesn't embarrass you, Mrs. Blackwood. Thorn's eyes flashed gold. Let me be absolutely clear. Sarah is my mate. My queen. Chosen by the moon goddess herself. If you are suggesting she is somehow inadequate, you are suggesting the goddess made a mistake. Would you like to make that argument? The threat in his voice made every wolf in the vicinity stop and freeze. No, Vivian said quickly. Of course not. I merely want to help. Then help by treating her with the respect she deserves. He pulled Sierra closer to his side. She is no longer the Omega you've been mistreating. She is the Alpha Queen of the Northern Territories, and anyone who forgets that will answer to me personally. The words should have felt empowering. Sarah should have felt vindicated, watching Vivian's mask crack and crumble, but all she felt was a growing sense of dread coiling in her stomach. This was too fast. Too much. Too exposed. "Show us to our quarters," Thorn said, and Vivian had no choice but to comply. The master suite was obscenely luxurious, all silk and velvet and furniture that probably cost more than Sarah had earned in 5 years. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens, and a 4-poster bed dominated the center of the room like a throne. Sarah had cleaned this room 100 times, had scrubbed the marble bathroom until it gleamed, changed the sheets, dusted the chandelier. She'd never imagined sleeping here. "This is wrong," she whispered as soon as the door closed behind them. Thorn turned to her, his expression unreadable. "What is all of this? You defending me, threatening Vivian, making declarations." She pulled away from him, wrapping her arms around herself. "You don't understand. You can't just... You're making it worse." "How is protecting my mate making things worse?" "Because you're going to leave." The words burst out before she could stop them. "You're going to go back to the Northern Territories and your pack and your responsibilities, and I'm going to be stuck here with Vivian and Delilah, and they're going to make me pay for every single second of tonight." Thorn went very still. "You think I'm leaving you here? Where else would I be? You said preparations need to be made. That takes time, and her voice cracked. "I can't go with you. Not yet. I don't know how to be what you need. I don't know how to be a queen. And if I show up at your pack as this pathetic Omega who can't even..." He crossed the room in 3 strides and caught her face between his hands. "Listen to me very carefully, little wolf. You are coming with me. Tomorrow. Tonight. If I could manage it. Do you understand? I am not leaving you in this house for one more day. But the pack will accept you because you're mine. Because you're their queen. And anyone who has a problem with that will deal with me." His thumbs stroked across her cheekbones. "You think I don't know what they've done to you here? I can smell the fear on you. I can see the scars, not the physical ones, the ones that go deeper. You think I'm going to leave you in the place that broke you?" Sierra's throat tightened. "You barely know me. I know enough." His voice softened. "I know you're terrified. I know you don't believe you deserve this. I know you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, for this to turn into another nightmare where you're the punchline. But Sierra," he pressed his forehead to hers, "I'm not going anywhere. And neither are you. Not without me." The mate bond hummed between them, warm and solid and real. Her wolf was purring, content in a way Sierra had never felt before. But her human mind kept circling back to one thought. This is too good to be true. A knock interrupted them. A servant entered carrying a single worn duffel bag, everything Sarah owned in the world. "Is this all?" Thorn's voice had gone cold again. The servant nodded nervously and fled. Thorn stared at the bag for a long moment. Then he turned to Sarah, and the fury in his eyes was banked but burning. "Tomorrow morning, we leave. You will never have to beg for scraps in this house again. Understood?" Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. "Good." He guided her toward the bathroom. "Now, you're going to take a bath. A long one. Use whatever you want. And when you're done, we're going to sleep. Together. In that bed. And I'm going to spend every second reminding my wolf that you're exhausted and overwhelmed and need rest, not claiming." Despite everything, Sarah felt her lips twitch. "Your wolf wants to claim me? My wolf wants to lock you in this room, and never let anyone look at you again." He said it like a confession. "My wolf is extremely possessive and not particularly rational, but I'm trying to be civilized. How's that working out?" "Poorly." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Go, bath, now, before I change my mind about being a gentleman." The bathroom was a marble paradise with a tub the size of a small pool. Sarah filled it with hot water and lavender oil she'd never been allowed to touch before, and sank in until the heat unknotted muscles she hadn't realized were tense. For 20 minutes, she let herself pretend this was real, that she was safe, that tomorrow she'd wake up and it wouldn't all be a cruel dream. But when she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel that cost more than her entire wardrobe, She found Thorn standing at the window, his phone pressed to his ear. Don't care what protocols say. She's my mate, which makes her queen immediately. The ceremony can wait, but the title is non-negotiable. A pause. Good. And Marcus? Have security do a full background check on the Silvercrest Pack leadership, especially Vivian and Delilah Blackwood. I want to know everything. He hung up and turned to find Sarah frozen in the doorway. You're investigating them? I'm protecting what's mine. He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. You don't survive as Alpha King by ignoring threats. And anyone who's hurt you is a threat. Subscribe if you believe Sarah deserves better than this. Because people like Sarah need an audience that won't abandon them, not now. Not when her entire world is being rewritten. Drop a comment if Sarah's fear is your fear too, that the good things are just setups for worse pain. Sarah's hands trembled. What if they find something? What if there's a reason you shouldn't? There's nothing they could find that would change what you are to me. He crossed to her, cupping her face. Nothing. Do you understand? She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But before she could answer, a blood-curdling scream split the night. Thorn's body went rigid, his eyes flashing gold. Every instinct in Sarah's body said run, but he was already moving, yanking open the bedroom door and sprinting toward the sound. Sarah grabbed a robe and followed. They found the source of the scream in Delilah's suite. Her stepsister was on her knees in the center of the room, surrounded by shredded wedding dress fabric. Silk and lace lay in tatters around her like snow, and on her vanity mirror, written in what looked like lipstick, were 3 words. You stole nothing. She did this. Delilah shrieked when she saw Sarah. Mascara ran down her face in black rivers. She's jealous. She destroyed my dress because she knows she'll never be worthy of you. I didn't. Sarah started, but Delilah was already lunging. Thorn caught her mid-leap, one hand around her throat, lifting her off the ground like she weighed nothing. The display of casual strength should have been terrifying. It was. Touch my mate, he said, his voice barely human, and I will rip your throat out. Are we clear? Delilah clawed at his hand, gasping. Beta Thomas appeared in the doorway, took one look at the scene, and wisely stayed back. Put her down, Vivian commanded from behind them. Your Majesty, please. She's distraught. The wedding. There is no wedding. Thorn dropped Delilah, who collapsed coughing. And if your daughter comes near Sarah again, there will be no Silvercrest alliance. No protection. Nothing. Do you understand? Vivian's face went white. You can't. We have treaties. That I can dissolve with a single phone call. His eyes were pure alpha now. All gold and lethal promise. Test me. He turned and pulled Sarah from the room, leaving chaos in their wake. Back in the master suite, Sarah couldn't stop shaking. I didn't touch her dress, I swear. I would never. I know. Thorn pulled her against his chest, his heart hammering against her ear. But someone did. And they wanted it to look like you. Who would? But Sarah already knew. Delilah. It had to be. A setup. A way to make Thorn doubt, to plant seeds of suspicion, to prove Sarah was exactly what they'd always said, unworthy, destructive, wrong. It won't work, Thorn said, reading her thoughts through the bond. Whatever games they're playing, they won't work. You're mine. And tomorrow, we leave this place forever. Sarah pressed her face into his chest and tried to believe him. But as she drifted toward sleep in the enormous bed, wrapped in her mate's arms for the first time, one thought kept circling. Delilah had never forgiven. And she'd never forgotten. And tomorrow was still a long way away. Chapter 4. The Serpent's Gift. Sarah woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the unfamiliar weight of an arm draped across her waist. For one blissful moment, she forgot where she was. Forgot everything. Except the warmth of the body pressed against her back. The steady rhythm of breathing against her neck. The feeling of being held instead of tolerated. Then reality crashed back. Alpha King, mate bond, Delilah's destroyed dress, leaving today. Leaving today. Your heart rate just spiked. Thorn's voice was rough with sleep, his breath warm against her ear. Bad dream? Just processing. Sarah didn't move, afraid that shifting would break whatever spell kept this moment safe. What time is it? Early. Dawn, maybe. His arm tightened around her waist. We have time before we need to leave. Unless you want to go now. We can be packed and gone in 20 minutes. The offer was tempting, but Sarah had spent 23 years in this house, 23 years of memories, most painful, some bearable, a handful almost good. Walking away felt like she should. What? Say goodbye? Leave a note? That's ridiculous, she muttered. What is? Feeling guilty about leaving. They never wanted me here. I should be celebrating. Thorn shifted, rolling her onto her back so he could look at her properly. His hair was mussed from sleep, his eyes still drowsy but focused entirely on her. Trauma makes us loyal to people who hurt us. It's not ridiculous, it's survival. The casual way he said it, like he understood, like he'd lived it, made something crack open in Sierra's chest. How do you know that? Because I spent 5 years after my parents died trying to earn my uncle's approval. His jaw tightened. He was regent until I came of age, and every day, he reminded me that I was too young, too weak, too emotional to ever be a real alpha king. That my father would be ashamed of what I'd become. That's horrible. It worked. I became exactly what he said I needed to be. Cold, controlled, ruthless. I buried every soft part of myself so deep I forgot it existed. His thumb traced the curve of her cheekbone. Until 3 days ago, when your scent hit me, and every wall I'd built just shattered. Sarah's throat tightened. I don't know how to do this. How to be what you need. You're already what I need. You just don't believe it yet. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. But you will. I'll prove it to you every day until you do. Before Sarah could respond, a sharp knock interrupted them. Your Majesty. A male voice from the hallway. I have an urgent message. Thorn growled, actually growled, but rolled out of bed and yanked on pants before opening the door. One of his guards stood there, face carefully neutral despite catching the Alpha King half-dressed with his mate. Report. Beta Thomas requests an audience. He says it's about Lady Delilah and concerns the Queen's safety. Sarah sat up, pulling the sheets around herself. My safety? Thorn's expression darkened. Tell him 5 minutes. The sitting room. The guard bowed and disappeared. Stay here, Thorn ordered, already reaching for a shirt. Absolutely not. Sarah was already out of bed, digging through her pathetic duffel bag for something clean. If this is about me, I'm going to be there. Sarah, you said I was your queen. That means I don't hide while other people make decisions about my life. She found a dress that was only slightly wrinkled and pulled it on. I'm done being the Omega everyone talks around instead of to. For a moment, she thought he'd argue. But then something shifted in his expression, pride, maybe, or recognition, and he nodded once. Then we go together. Beta Thomas waited in the sitting room, looking like he hadn't slept. His normally immaculate appearance was rumpled, his tie loose, dark circles under his eyes. He stood immediately when they entered. Your Majesty, Lady Sarah, thank you for seeing me. You said this concerns my mate's safety. Thorn's voice was pure ice. Explain. Thomas glanced at Sarah, something like pity crossing his face. I need to show you something. But first, you need to understand I had no part in this. I only discovered it last night after everything. He pulled out his phone and brought up a video. Delilah sent this to me 3 weeks ago. I thought it was just pre-wedding jitters, her being dramatic. But after last night, I realized what it really was. He pressed play. Delilah's face filled the screen, all perfect makeup, and practiced tears. Tommy, I need to tell you something. About Sarah. She paused, wiping her eyes. I hate saying this. She's like a sister to me. But you deserve to know the truth before we're married. Sarah's stomach dropped. Sarah has been obsessed with you for months, Delilah continued on the video. She's convinced herself that you're her mate, that the moon goddess made a mistake, pairing you with me. She's been leaving gifts in your quarters, stealing your clothes, following you around the pack grounds. Mother and I have tried to help her, tried to get her therapy, but she just gets more desperate. The video. Delilah leaned closer to the camera, her voice dropping to a whisper. I'm afraid she might do something drastic, hurt herself. Or hurt me. She's already threatened to ruin the wedding. Said she'd rather see me dead than married to you. I'm scared, Tommy. I'm really scared. The video ended. Sierra couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she'd just watched. That's not true, she whispered. None of that is true. I know. Thomas's voice was gentle. I know because I've been around the pack for 6 months, and I've never seen you do any of those things. I've barely seen you at all, actually. You're like a ghost in this house. Then why did Delilah send you this? Thorne's voice was deadly quiet. Insurance, I think. Thomas pocketed his phone. If the wedding went through, she'd have a built-in excuse for why Sarah was kept away from pack events, why she wasn't allowed to attend the ceremony, why no one should trust anything she said. And if Sarah tried to expose any mistreatment, Delilah could point to this video as proof she was mentally unstable. Sarah's voice cracked. She was planning to isolate me, make sure no one would believe me if I ever spoke up. Worse. Thomas's expression hardened. There's more. I went through Delilah's messages last night. She's been in contact with someone called V for the past month, someone who's been giving her advice on how to handle the Omega problem. He pulled up screenshots, messages from an unknown number. V. Omegas are naturally unstable. Document everything. V. Create a paper trail, videos are best, witnesses even better. V. If she becomes too problematic, there are facilities that specialize in difficult cases. I can provide references. Delilah. What kind of facilities? V. The kind where wolves go in and don't come out. At least not as themselves. Sarah's legs gave out. She would have hit the floor if Thorne hadn't caught her, pulling her against his chest. She was going to have me committed, Sarah breathed. She was going to lock me away in some facility and… No. Thorne's voice vibrated with barely controlled rage. She tried to plan it. Past tense. Because she's never touching you again. He looked at Thomas, his eyes pure gold. Do you know who V is? No. The number's untraceable. Burner phone, probably. Thomas hesitated. But Your Majesty. There's one more thing. I checked the timestamps on these messages. The most recent one was sent 2 hours ago. He pulled up the final screenshot. V. The Alpha King's mate bond complicates things, but bonds can be broken. Especially for wolves with pre-existing mental instability. Make sure everyone at breakfast sees her behavior. I'll handle the rest. The timestamp read 4:47 a.m. Less than 2 hours ago. Breakfast, Sarah whispered. Vivian insisted on a farewell breakfast. Said it was proper protocol for an Alpha King's departure. She said, her blood went cold. She said the whole pack leadership would be there. Witnesses. Thorne's arms tightened around her. They're setting you up, planning something to make you look unstable in front of witnesses. So when you accidentally disappear or have a breakdown, no one will question it. But the mate bond, they can't break that, can they? Even as Sarah said it, doubt crept in. She'd heard stories. Dark magic, witch contracts, ways to sever bonds if you were desperate enough and cruel enough. They can try. Thorne's voice dropped to something inhuman. They'll fail. But they can try. He pulled back, cupping her face. Listen to me. We're not going to that breakfast. We're leaving, right now. My team can handle the politics. I'm getting you out of this house before. No. Both men stared at her. No? Thorne repeated carefully. Sarah's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. If we run, they win. Delilah gets to tell everyone I was mentally unstable. And you were too blinded by the mate bond to see it. That you stole me away because I'd manipulated you. And when you're back in the Northern Territories dealing with pack business, they'll keep spreading that story. Keep undermining me. Keep making sure no one respects me as queen. I don't care if they respect you. I care that you're safe. I can't live like that. The words burst out raw and desperate. I can't spend my whole life running from them, looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next attack. I've been invisible and silent and scared for 23 years, and I'm done. I'm done. Thorne looked like she'd struck him. What are you suggesting? We go to breakfast. Sarah's wolf rose inside her, lending strength. We walk in there together. And we let them try whatever they're planning. But this time, I'm not alone. This time I have you. And witnesses. And when they make their move, we expose them. All of it. The videos, the messages, the plan to have me committed. Everything. That's too dangerous. Thorne growled. Being your mate is dangerous. Sarah met his eyes. Being queen is dangerous. I need to stop being the victim they expect me to be. And if I run now, I'll always be running. Silence stretched between them. Thomas watched the exchange like he was witnessing something either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Finally, Thorne spoke. If we do this, and I'm not saying yes yet, we do it my way. My guards, my rules. And the second things go sideways, we're out. Understood? Sarah nodded. Thomas. Thorne's tone shifted to pure alpha command. You're going to go back and tell Vivian we'll attend breakfast. Tell her we're looking forward to the send-off. Act normal. Can you do that? Yes, Your Majesty. Thomas bowed. And for what it's worth. He looked at Sarah. I'm sorry. I should have seen what they were doing sooner. After he left, Thorne pulled Sarah back into his arms. You're either very brave or very foolish. Can't I be both? His laugh was low and humorless. We're going to find out. We are going to find out. Chapter 5. The Final Breakfast. The formal dining room had been transformed into a spectacle of false warmth. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating a table laden with enough food to feed 50 wolves. Crystal glittered. Silver gleamed. Fresh flowers, Sarah's carefully tended roses, had been cut and arranged in elaborate centerpieces, their blooms already wilting in the overheated room. Every high-ranking member of the Silvercrest pack sat around that table, dressed in their finest. Vivian held court at one end, her smile sharp as broken glass. Delilah sat beside her, eyes red-rimmed but her makeup perfect, playing the role of wounded innocence. And they were all staring at Sarah. Your Majesty, Lady Sarah. Vivian rose, arms outstretched like she was greeting beloved family. We're so honored you could join us for this farewell breakfast. Please sit. She gestured to 2 seats in the center of the table directly across from Delilah. Thorne's hand tightened on Sarah's lower back. Through the mate bond, she felt his wolf prowling just beneath his skin, ready to tear through anyone who made a wrong move. Easy, she thought at him. We need to see what they're planning. I don't like this. His voice rumbled through the bond. Too many wolves. Too many variables. But he guided her to the seats and they sat. His 4 guards positioned themselves at strategic points around the room, close enough to intervene, far enough to seem casual. Such a whirlwind romance. Vivian poured tea with practiced grace. We're all just thrilled for you both. Aren't we thrilled, everyone? A chorus of agreement rippled around the table. Too enthusiastic. Too synchronized. Of course, it's been quite a shock for poor Delilah. Vivian's hand landed on her daughter's shoulder. Having her wedding canceled so suddenly. But she's been so gracious about it, haven't you, darling? Delilah looked up, and her eyes were pure poison wrapped in tears. I just want Sarah to be happy. She's like a sister to me. If the moon goddess chose her for the Alpha King, then who am I to question divine will? The words were perfect. The delivery flawless, but Sarah saw the hatred burning beneath them. How generous, Thorne said, his voice flat. Especially considering someone destroyed your wedding dress last night and tried to frame my mate for it. The room went silent. Vivian's smile never wavered. Oh, that unfortunate incident. Just pre-wedding stress, I'm sure. Delilah gets so emotional, don't you, sweetie? I do. Delilah dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. I'm just so overwhelmed. Everything's happened so fast. And Sarah, her voice broke beautifully. Sarah, I need to apologize. Sarah's stomach clenched. For what? For not seeing it sooner. Delilah reached across the table as if to take Sarah's hand. Sarah pulled back. I should have noticed you were struggling. Should have gotten you help before it got this bad. Before what got this bad? Thorne's voice dropped to a growl. Her obsession, Delilah's eyes welled with fresh tears. With Beta Thomas, with me, with having what I have. Mother and I have been trying to help her for months, but she just got worse. The stalking, the threats, the delusions about being someone's mate. That's a lie. Sarah said quietly. Is it? Vivian's voice was pure sympathy as she addressed the table. We've all seen how Sarah follows Delilah around, how she mimics her clothes, her hair, her choices. It's textbook obsessive behavior. She wears my hand-me-downs because you won't buy her clothes, Sarah shot back, her voice stronger now. She follows me because you assign her every chore I'm given. And the only person who's been delusional is the one who thinks she can lie to an alpha king. Murmurs rippled around the table. Some wolves looked uncomfortable, others skeptical. See? Delilah turned to the assembled pack leadership, her performance Oscar-worthy. This is what I'm talking about. The paranoia. The accusations. She's convinced everyone is out to get her when we've done nothing but try to help. Help, Sarah repeated, her hands clenching under the table. Is that what you call making me sleep in the basement? Making me scrub floors while you throw parties? Stealing every good thing that's ever happened to me? Stealing? Delilah's laugh was fragile, broken. Sarah, sweetheart, I can't steal what was never yours. You're an omega. I'm a beta. That's just hierarchy. That's how packs work. She turned to Thorn, her expression pleading. Your Majesty, I know the mate bond is powerful, overwhelming, but please, you have to see that Sarah needs help. Professional help. There are excellent facilities that specialize in— Finish that sentence, Thorn said softly, and I will rip your tongue out. The temperature in the room plummeted. Every wolf's instincts screamed danger. Several pack members actually pushed back from the table, but Vivian pressed on, her voice reasonable and concerned. Your Majesty, I understand you're protective. The mate bond makes us irrational. But we've known Sarah her entire life. We've watched her mental state deteriorate. Surely you can see that someone who's been through what she has, losing her parents, being taken in out of charity, living as the lowest-ranked wolf in the pack, surely that creates psychological damage. The only damage, Thorn said, his eyes pure gold now, was inflicted by you. That's simply not true. Vivian's mask cracked just slightly. We've provided for her, fed her, housed her, given her purpose and structure. If she's chosen to interpret kindness as cruelty, Beta Thomas. Thorn's voice cut through her words like a blade. Show them. Thomas stood from his position at the far end of the table. He'd been quiet until now, watching the performance with increasing disgust. Now he pulled out his phone. 3 weeks ago, Delilah sent me this video, he said, his voice carrying clearly. I'm going to play it now. I want everyone to hear what she said about Sarah. What she was planning. Thomas, don't. Delilah's composure shattered. That was private. You can't. But he'd already pressed play. Delilah's voice filled the room. Sarah has been obsessed with you for months. She's convinced herself that you're her mate. Sarah watched the faces around the table shift from skepticism to shock to horror as the video played. As Delilah detailed her fictional version of Sarah's stalking. As she painted a picture of a mentally unstable omega who needed to be controlled, contained, possibly eliminated. When it ended, the silence was deafening. That's out of context. Delilah's voice rose to a shriek. I was trying to protect everyone. She is dangerous. Then explain these. Thomas swiped to the screenshots of the messages. These suggesting facilities where wolves go in and don't come out. You planning to make sure everyone saw Sarah's behavior at breakfast. The message sent at 4:47 this morning about breaking mate bonds. He looked around the table. This wasn't concern. This was conspiracy. To discredit, isolate, and potentially imprison a member of your own pack because she dared to be chosen by the moon goddess over the golden child. No. Vivian stood, her chair scraping loudly. No, this is your twisting everything. Sarah has always been troubled. Ask anyone. She's sullen, antisocial, refuses to participate in pack life. Because you made me clean during every pack event. Sarah was on her feet now, years of suppressed rage finally breaking free. Because you dressed me in rags and locked me in the basement and made sure everyone knew I was nothing. You didn't give me charity, you gave me hell, and called it kindness. How dare you? No. Sarah's voice rang through the room with power she didn't know she possessed. How dare you? How dare you take a child whose parents just died and turn her into your personal servant? How dare you let your daughter torture me for years while pretending it was sisterly affection? How dare you plan to have me committed to some facility where I'd disappear, just because I finally got something you couldn't take away? The mate bond flared between her and Thorn, his strength flooding into her. She could feel his pride, his fury, his absolute certainty that she was magnificent. You want everyone to think I'm crazy? Sarah's hands were shaking, but her voice was steel. Fine, let's talk about crazy. Let's talk about a woman who married a widower for his money, worked him to death within a year, then kept his daughter as unpaid labor for 2 decades. Let's talk about a mother who raised her child to believe cruelty was currency, and other people's pain was entertainment. Let's talk about destroying a wedding dress and writing messages to yourself, so you could frame someone who never fought back because she was too broken to believe she deserved better. Sarah, Vivian's voice was strangled. I'm not finished. Sarah turned to face the assembled pack leadership. You all saw it. Every single one of you. You saw me scrubbing floors while Delilah threw parties. You saw me eating kitchen scraps while she wore designer dresses. You saw me being treated like dirt. And none of you said a word. Because I was just an omega. Just the charity case. Just someone whose suffering didn't matter because she didn't have the right rank. Shame flickered across several faces. Good. But here's what you didn't see, Sarah continued. You didn't see that the moon goddess was watching. That she knew exactly what I'd survived, what I'd endured, what I'd become despite every effort to break me. And she decided I was worthy. Not Delilah, not anyone else, me. She looked at Thorn, who was watching her with something like awe. So you can believe Vivian's lies. You can think I'm unstable or obsessed or whatever story makes you feel better about your complicity. But the fact remains, I'm the alpha queen now, and every wolf who stood by and let me suffer is going to have to live with that. The silence that followed was absolute. Then, slowly, one of the older pack members, a gray-haired wolf named Helena, who ran the pack's medical clinic, stood up. I'm ashamed, she said quietly. Lady Sarah is right. We all saw. We all knew. And we did nothing. She bowed her head. I'm sorry, my queen. And I'm honored to serve you. One by one, other wolves stood. Bowing. Apologizing. Pledging loyalty. Not everyone, but enough. Vivian looked around the room, watching her carefully constructed world crumble. This is ridiculous. She's manipulating all of you. She's... enough. Thorn's voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. You have 2 choices. You can accept that Sarah is my mate and your queen, show her the respect she deserves, and possibly maintain your position in this pack. Or you can continue this charade, and I will have you investigated for conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, and treason against the crown. He paused. Choose wisely. Vivian's face went white. Delilah opened her mouth, closed it, then burst into tears, real ones this time, not performed, and fled the room. We accept, Vivian said finally, the words clearly choking her. Of course. We. Welcome, Queen Sarah. The bow she gave was shallow and poisonous, but it was a bow. Thorn stood, pulling Sarah to her feet. Then we're done here. My mate and I are leaving. And if I hear of any accidents befalling wolves who supported her today, I will return, and I will not be merciful. He guided Sarah toward the door, his guards falling into formation around them. As they passed Helena, the older wolf reached out and squeezed Sarah's hand. Be magnificent, little queen, she whispered. You already are. Outside, the morning sun felt like absolution. Sarah didn't look back at the pack house. Not once. She was done with that place. Done with those people. Done with being small and scared and silent. She was the alpha queen now, and her real story was just beginning. Chapter 6. The Northern Crown. The drive to the Northern Territories took 6 hours. Sarah spent the first hour in silence, watching the Silvercrest pack lands disappear in the rearview mirror. The pack house grew smaller, then vanished entirely behind hills and trees, like it had never existed at all. You okay? Thorn's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand where their fingers were intertwined. I don't know. Sarah's voice was raw from the confrontation. I keep waiting to feel something. Relief? Victory? But I just feel empty. Grief. Thorn said quietly. You're grieving the family you should have had. The childhood you deserved. It's normal. How is any of this normal? It's not. But the feelings are. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. You just burned down your entire old life in front of witnesses. That's terrifying even when it's necessary. Sierra leaned her head against his shoulder, exhaustion washing over her. What if I can't do this? Be queen? Lead a pack that doesn't even know me? Then we'll figure it out together. His arm wrapped around her shoulders, pulling her closer. But for what it's worth, you were incredible back there. Watching you stand up to Vivian, claim your power, refuse to be diminished. His voice roughened with emotion. I've never been more proud of anyone in my life. The words settled into Sierra's chest like warmth, pushing back some of the cold. She must have dozed off because the next thing she knew, Thorn was gently shaking her awake. We're here, little wolf. Welcome home. Sarah blinked and looked out the window. Her breath caught. The Northern Territory's pack house wasn't a house at all, it was a fortress. Stone walls rose from a hillside like they'd grown there, ancient and eternal. Towers stretched toward the sky, windows glittering like stars. Mountains loomed behind it, snow-capped peaks touching clouds. And everywhere, wolves moved with purpose, their heads turning as the motorcade approached. That's... Sarah couldn't find words. Overwhelming? Thorn offered. Intimidating? Completely terrifying? Beautiful, she whispered. His smile was soft. Wait until you see the inside. The gates opened, and they drove through into a courtyard filled with assembled wolves. Hundreds of them. All standing at attention, all watching as the Alpha King's car pulled to a stop. Sierra's heart hammered. They're all here for you. Thorn squeezed her hand. They're here to meet their queen. I'm not ready. Yes, you are. He turned to face her fully, his amber eyes intense. Listen to me. You just faced down the people who spent 20 years breaking you. You exposed their lies in front of witnesses. You claimed your power. If you can do that, you can do this. That was different. They were enemies you knew. He cupped her face. These are allies you haven't met yet. And yes, some might be skeptical. Some might think an Omega can't be queen. But you're going to prove them wrong. Just like you proved Vivian wrong. Just like you'll prove every doubter wrong for the rest of your life. Sarah took a shaky breath. What do I do? You stand beside me, you let them see you. And you remember that you're mine, which means you're theirs. My pack. Our pack. He pressed his forehead to hers. Ready? No. Perfect. Neither was I when I became king at 17. He opened the car door. Let's do this anyway. The moment Sarah stepped out of the car, every wolf in the courtyard bowed. The gesture was synchronized, reverent, absolute. Hundreds of wolves dropping to one knee, heads lowered, exposing their throats in submission to their alpha king and his mate. Sarah froze, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of it. Breathe, Thorn murmured, his hand steady on her lower back. Then, louder, addressing the assembled pack, rise. They stood as one, and Sarah finally saw their faces. Young and old, male and female, every rank from Alpha to Omega, all watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to calculation to cautious hope. My pack, Thorn's voice carried across the courtyard, with effortless authority. I present to you your queen, Sarah Blackwood, my true mate, chosen by the moon goddess herself. A ripple went through the crowd. Whispers. She's an Omega, someone said, not quite quietly enough. The king's mate is the king's mate, another voice countered. Rank doesn't matter, doesn't it? Thorn's eyes flashed gold, silencing the murmurs instantly. My mate's rank is irrelevant. What matters is that she is mine, that she carries my mark. He tilted Sarah's head gently, exposing her neck where his bite would eventually go. Or will, once the claiming ceremony is complete. And that anyone who questions her place in this pack, questions me. The threat hung in the air, sharp as knives. Then a woman stepped forward from the crowd. She was maybe 40, with silver streaking through her dark hair and eyes that assessed Sarah with clinical precision. Your Majesty, I am Lydia, head of the Queen's Guard. It's my honor to serve you. She bowed deeply, And 6 other wolves, all female, all radiating deadly competence, stepped forward and bowed as well. The Queen's Guard? Sarah's voice came out smaller than she intended. Your personal protection detail, Thorn explained. They go where you go. Answer only to you. And will die before they let anyone harm you. That seems extreme. Lydia's lips twitched. You're mated to the most powerful alpha in the territories, Your Majesty. That makes you a target for anyone who wants to weaken him. We're not extreme. We're necessary. Another wolf stepped forward, this one male, elderly, with kind eyes and a scholar's stoop. Your Majesty. I am Elder Tobias, head of the council. We've prepared chambers for you and the Alpha King, and we'd be honored if you'd join us for a formal welcome dinner this evening. Dinner. With the pack leadership. People who would judge her every word, every gesture, every breath. Sarah's chest tightened. We're honored, Thorn said smoothly, his hand finding hers and squeezing. But the Queen has had a difficult morning. We'll take the rest of the day to settle in. Dinner tomorrow night would be more appropriate. Relief flooded through Sarah. Through the mate bond, she felt Thorn's awareness of her spiraling anxiety and his determination to protect her from it. Of course, Your Majesty, Tobias bowed. Tomorrow evening then. Lydia, Thorn continued, please escort the Queen to our chambers. I need to handle some urgent pack business. But I'll join her shortly. Wait, Sarah turned to him, panic flaring. You're leaving? Only for an hour, 2 at most. He pulled her close, lowering his voice so only she could hear. I need to deal with some security concerns and touch base with my beta. But I promise, I'm coming right back. Lydia and her team won't let anything happen to you. Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to beg him not to leave her alone in this massive, overwhelming place. But she could see the necessity in his eyes. He was Alpha King. He had responsibilities beyond her comfort. Okay, she whispered. He kissed her forehead, lingering. You're doing beautifully, little wolf. I'm so proud of you. Then he was gone, striding across the courtyard with 3 guards in tow. And Sarah was left with Lydia and 6 warriors who'd sworn to die for her. This way, Your Majesty. Lydia's voice was respectful but firm. I think you'll find the Queen's chambers quite comfortable. Comfortable was an insult to what Lydia showed her. The Queen's chambers were a suite of rooms that could have housed Sarah's entire childhood in one corner. A bedroom with a bed the size of a small island. A sitting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains. A bathroom carved from marble with a tub that could fit 5 people. A walk-in closet that was currently empty except for her pathetic duffel bag sitting on a velvet bench like a joke. We'll have a wardrobe prepared for you immediately, Lydia said, following Sarah's gaze. The seamstresses are standing by to take your measurements whenever you're ready. I don't. Sarah's voice cracked. I don't know what queens wear. Whatever you want. Lydia's expression softened slightly. You're not at Silvercrest anymore, Your Majesty. No one here will tell you what to wear, how to act, or who to be. You're the Queen. You set the standards. The kindness in her voice made Sarah's eyes burn with unshed tears. I don't know how to do this. No one does it first. Lydia gestured for her team to wait outside, then closed the door, leaving them alone. Can I speak frankly, Your Majesty? Please. When I became head of the Queen's Guard 10 years ago, the position had been empty for 15 years. The king's mother died when he was 12, and he swore he'd never take a mate, never put someone in danger that way. Never risk the kind of grief that killed his mother. Lydia moved to the window, her back to Sarah. We all thought he'd die unmated and alone. That the Northern Territories would pass to some distant cousin who'd probably run it into the ground. She turned, and her expression was fierce. Then this morning, we got word. The king found his mate. An Omega from a mid-tier pack who stood up to her abusers and claimed her power in front of witnesses. And I thought, thank the goddess, he finally found someone worth the risk. Sarah's throat tightened. You don't even know me. I know you're terrified. I know you feel out of your depth. I know you're waiting for someone to realize you're not good enough and send you back. Lydia stepped closer. I also know you survived 20 years in hell and came out still capable of kindness, still tending gardens in a house where you were treated like dirt. Still believing, somewhere deep down, that you deserved better. How do you know that? Because if you didn't believe it, you wouldn't be here. You'd have run. You'd have rejected the bond. You'd have stayed small and safe and invisible. Lydia's smile was small but genuine. But you didn't. You chose to fight. And that's all being queen really is, choosing to fight for your pack, your mate, and yourself, every single day. The words settled into Sarah's chest like a promise. I don't have fancy dresses, Sarah said quietly. I don't know pack politics or protocol, or how to talk to elders without sounding like an idiot. I can barely believe this is real. Then we'll teach you. All of it. That's what we're here for. Lydia's hand landed on Sarah's shoulder, surprisingly gentle for someone who looked like she could snap necks without breaking a sweat. You're not alone anymore, Your Majesty. You have the king. You have us. You have an entire pack that's been waiting for someone to help him remember what it means to be whole. A knock interrupted them. One of Lydia's warriors poked her head in. Your Majesty, the seamstresses are here. And the king sent word he's running late. He apologizes and says to eat without him if you're hungry. Disappointment flickered through Sarah, but she pushed it down. He was busy. Important. She couldn't expect him to drop everything just because she was lonely. Tell him it's fine, Sarah said, even though it wasn't. I'll see him when he's done. The warrior nodded and disappeared. Lydia studied her. You know, queens are allowed to miss their mates. You don't have to pretend to be fine all the time. I barely know him, Sarah protested. It's ridiculous to miss him after a few hours. It's the mate bond. It makes us ridiculously attached, ridiculously fast. Lydia's smile was knowing. Give it time. It gets better. And worse. Simultaneously, despite everything, Sarah laughed. It felt strange. Foreign. But good. All right, she said, squaring her shoulders. Let's deal with these seamstresses. And then maybe you can tell me what exactly I'm supposed to do at this dinner tomorrow night so I don't embarrass myself. Now you're thinking like a queen, Lydia said approvingly. And for the first time since arriving, Sarah thought maybe, just maybe, she could actually do this. Chapter 7. The Price of Power. Thorn didn't return that night. Sarah waited through dinner, which arrived on silver trays carried by servants who bowed so low they nearly touched the floor. She waited through the seamstresses, who measured every inch of her body while chattering about fabrics and styles in a language she barely understood. She waited through the bath Lydia insisted she take, soaking in water scented with pine and herbs until her skin pruned. And still, he didn't come. By midnight, Sarah lay alone in the massive bed, staring at the ceiling and trying not to feel abandoned. He was the Alpha King. He had responsibilities. She couldn't expect him to prioritize her every moment, but the mate bond ached with his absence, a hollow feeling in her chest that made her wolf whine and pace. He's fine, she told herself firmly. He's just busy. Go to sleep. She was still telling herself that when dawn crept through the windows. Lydia found her at sunrise, sitting in the window seat, and watching the pack grounds come alive below. Wolves emerged from their homes, heading to training grounds or kitchens or wherever their duties called them, a whole world functioning perfectly without her. The king sent a message, Lydia said carefully. He's handling a situation at the southern border. Rogue activity. He'll return as soon as possible. Oh. Sarah's voice came out flat. Is it dangerous? For the rogues? Absolutely. Lydia set a tray of breakfast on the table. For the king? He's fought off worse with one hand tied behind his back. He'll be fine. But the words didn't chase away the cold settling in Sarah's stomach. Their first night in his territory, and he'd left her alone. Was this what being queen meant? Sleeping in empty beds, and waiting for a mate who had more important things to do? You're being unfair, her rational mind argued. He's protecting the pack. That's his job. Our job, her wolf countered. We should be with him, fighting beside him, not locked in a tower like some helpless princess. Your Majesty? Lydia's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. You should eat. The dinner with the council is tonight. You'll need your strength. Right. The dinner. Where she'd be judged by wolves who'd known Thorn his entire life. Who'd probably been hoping he'd mate someone powerful, connected, useful. Not a broken omega from a mid-tier pack who could barely hold a fork without her hands shaking. I'm not hungry. With respect, Your Majesty, that wasn't a suggestion. Lydia's tone softened. I know you're worried about the king. I know you're overwhelmed. But starving yourself won't help either situation. Sarah forced herself to the table and picked at the food. It tasted like ash. The day passed in a blur of preparation. More seamstresses arrived with dresses for Sarah to try on beautiful, elaborate gowns that made her feel like she was playing dress-up in someone else's clothes. Eventually, they settled on something relatively simple. A deep green dress that brought out the gold in her eyes, with sleeves that covered the scars on her arms, and a neckline that sat just below her collarbones. You look like a queen, Lydia said when Sarah emerged from the dressing room. Sarah looked at herself in the mirror and saw a stranger. Someone polished and proper, and nothing like the girl who'd scrubbed floors yesterday morning. I look like I'm pretending to be a queen, she corrected. Same thing, at first. Lydia adjusted the dress's hem. Eventually, the pretending becomes reality, trust me. A young wolf appeared at the door, breathless and urgent. Commander Lydia. The king has returned. He's requested the queen meet him in his office immediately. Relief and anxiety crashed through Sarah in equal measure. Is he hurt? No, ma'am. But the young wolf hesitated. He's not in a good mood. Thorne's office was in the West Tower. Up 3 flights of stairs that left Sarah breathless. 2 guards flanked the door, their expressions carefully neutral as they bowed and let her through. The office was pure Thorne, dark wood, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, weapons mounted on the walls like art. Maps covered a massive desk, marked with red pins and scribbled notes, and standing at the window, his back to the door, was her mate. He looked exhausted. Still dressed in combat gear, his shirt torn and stained with what looked like blood. His shoulders were rigid, his hands clenched at his sides. Thorne? Sarah's voice came out small. He turned, and his eyes were still gold. Still wolf. Still riding the edge of control. You're hurt, she said, taking a step forward. It's not my blood. His voice was rough, strained. The rogues are dead. The border is secure. Everything's fine. But it wasn't fine. She could feel it through the bond rage and guilt, and something darker coiling through him like poison. What happened? Nothing you need to worry about. He turned back to the window, dismissing her. The council dinner is in 2 hours. Lydia should have prepared you. Wear something appropriate. Don't embarrass me. The words hit like a slap. Sarah stood frozen, her wolf whining in confusion. This wasn't her mate. This was the cold, controlled alpha king everyone warned her about. The one who'd spent 15 years building walls so high nothing could touch him. I wouldn't dream of embarrassing you, she said quietly, hating how her voice shook. I'll go get ready. She turned to leave. Wait. The word was anguished. Sarah, wait. I didn't mean. But she was already out the door, moving quickly before the tears could fall. Lydia took one look at Sarah's face and dismissed the other guards. What happened? Nothing. Sarah swiped at her eyes. He's just busy. Stressed. I shouldn't have bothered him. He spoke to you like that? Lydia's expression darkened. While covered in blood and running on no sleep, that idiot. He's the Alpha King. He can speak however he wants. He's also your mate. And mates don't get to use their rank as an excuse for cruelty. Lydia sighed. Your Majesty, I need to tell you something about the king. Something that might help you understand. Sarah waited. When he loses control, when he has to do something brutal like slaughter rogues, he withdraws, pushes everyone away, convinces himself he's a monster who doesn't deserve softness or comfort or love. Lydia met her eyes. His parents' death broke something in him, made him believe that caring about people, letting them close, is a weakness that gets them killed. So when he feels vulnerable, he lashes out, drives people away before they can leave him. That's not an excuse. No. It's an explanation. Lydia's voice gentled. He needs time to remember he's not his uncle. That being strong doesn't mean being alone. That you're not going to shatter if he shows you the dark parts of himself. Sarah's throat tightened. What if I do shatter? You won't. You survived Vivian and Delilah. You can survive a mate having a bad day. Lydia squeezed her shoulder. But you don't have to accept his cruelty either. Queens set boundaries too. Even with kings. The council dinner was held in a formal dining hall that made the Silvercrest packhouse look like a shed. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over a table that could seat 50. Every seat was filled with the Northern Territory's most powerful wolves, elders, warriors, advisors, pack leaders from allied territories, all watching Sarah with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. Thorn sat at the head of the table, looking every inch the controlled alpha king. He'd showered and changed into formal attire, his expression cold and regal. When Sarah entered, he stood as did every other wolf, and gestured to the seat beside him. She sat, he sat, everyone sat, and the interrogation began. "Your Majesty," Elder Tobias said, his tone respectful but probing. "We're honored to finally meet you. The king has told us so little. Perhaps you could share how you and His Majesty met." Sarah's hands clenched under the table. "At my stepsister's engagement dinner, the king was attending as a courtesy to Beta Thomas." "How romantic." A female elder, Miriam, if Sarah remembered correctly, smiled like a shark. "And how long did you court before the king recognized the mate bond?" "We didn't court. The bond was immediate." Murmurs rippled around the table. "Of course. Because true mate bonds didn't require courtship. The moon goddess either paired you or she didn't." "Immediate," Miriam repeated. "How convenient. Some might even say suspiciously fast." Thorn's fork hit his plate with a sharp clink. "Are you questioning the validity of the mate bond, Elder Miriam?" "Not at all, Your Majesty. I merely find it curious that in all your years, you've never shown interest in a mate. And then suddenly, at a random dinner, you find one who happens to be in—" She paused delicately. "Omega." The word hung in the air like an accusation. "My mate's rank," Thorn said, his voice deadly quiet, "is irrelevant." "Is it?" Another Elder Lawrence leaned forward. "The queen will be expected to produce heirs. Strong heirs. And Omegas historically have difficulty carrying alpha offspring to term. Surely you've considered the genetics." Sarah's stomach twisted. She hadn't even thought about children. Hadn't thought about anything beyond surviving the next day. "The queen's ability to produce heirs is none of your concern," Thorn growled. "It's the pack's concern," Lawrence countered. "The line of succession is critical. If the queen can't provide stable heirs—" "Enough." Thorn's eyes flashed gold. "You will not discuss my mate's body or reproductive capacity at this table. Or anywhere else. Am I clear?" Silence fell like a hammer. But the damage was done. Sarah could feel every eye on her, every wolf calculating her worth based on rank and biology and potential failure. "If I may," Tobias cut in smoothly, "perhaps we could discuss the queen's background. Your family, Your Majesty, are they still in Silvercrest?" "My parents are dead," Sarah said quietly. "My mother died when I was 6. My step-family remains in Silvercrest, but we're not close." "Not close," Miriam repeated. "I heard you were raised by them. Surely there's some familial bond?" "They treated me like a servant," Sarah said, her voice stronger now. "Made me sleep in the basement, made me scrub floors and pour wine at their parties. So no, Elder Miriam, there's no familial bond. Just 20 years of surviving people who wanted me to believe I was worthless." The table went silent. "And yet," Miriam pressed, "you expect us to believe you're fit to be queen? When you have no training? No education in pack politics? No experience leading wolves? I expect you to show my mate respect," Thorn snarled, half rising from his seat. "Or I'll find elders who will." "Your Majesty, please," Tobias tried to intervene. But Sarah had heard enough. She stood, her chair scraping loudly. Every wolf's attention snapped to her. "You're right," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "I have no training, no political experience, no noble bloodline or impressive credentials. I'm just an Omega from a mid-tier pack who spent most of her life being told she didn't matter." She met each elder's eyes in turn. "But the moon goddess didn't choose me because I was perfect. She chose me because I survived. Because I learned to be strong in a place that wanted me weak. Because I know what it means to fight for every scrap of dignity and respect." Her hands were shaking, but she didn't stop. "So yes, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to need help. I'm going to stumble and fail and probably embarrass myself 100 times before I figure out what being queen actually means. She looked at Thorn, her eyes burning. But I'm here. I'm his mate. And I'm not going anywhere. So you can either help me learn, or you can spend the next however many years waiting for me to fail. Your choice. Then she turned and walked out of the dining hall, her head high, her spine straight. And she didn't look back. Behind her, she heard Thorn's chair scrape back. Heard his voice, low and furious, addressing the elders. If any of you ever speak to my mate that way again, you'll answer to me personally. This meeting is over. Footsteps followed her down the corridor. Fast, urgent. Sierra. Thorn's voice was rough. Sierra, stop, please. She stopped but didn't turn around. He caught her shoulders, turning her gently. His eyes were amber again, fully human, devastated. I'm sorry, he breathed. For this morning, for tonight, for all of it. I was an ass. I pushed you away when you needed me. I let them interrogate you without stepping in sooner. I need you to decide something. Sarah interrupted, her voice shaking. Are you going to be my mate? Or are you going to be the alpha king who tolerates me because the moon goddess said so? Because I can't do both. I can't have you holding me at night and dismissing me in the morning. I can't be your queen in public and your burden in private. You're not a burden. Then act like it. The words burst out of her. I'm terrified, Thorn. Every second of every day, I'm waiting for someone to realize I'm not good enough. That the moon goddess made a mistake. That you're going to regret choosing me. And when you pull away, when you shut me out, you prove all my fears right. His hands came up to cup her face. I'm sorry. God. Sarah. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to do this. How to be open. How to let someone see the parts of me that are broken. I'm broken too, she whispered. We can be broken together. He pulled her against his chest, his arms banding around her like he was afraid she'd disappear. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. His laugh was wet, broken. Best thing that ever happened to me. They stood there in the hallway, clinging to each other, while the dinner party dissolved into chaos behind them. And for the first time since arriving, Sarah thought maybe they'd actually be okay. Maybe. Chapter 8. The Claiming. They didn't go back to the dinner. Instead, Thorn led Sarah through winding corridors to a part of the fortress she hadn't seen before. A private garden tucked behind the east wing, hidden from the rest of the pack. Moonflowers bloomed in the darkness, their petals glowing silver under the full moon. A fountain bubbled softly in the center, and stone benches sat beneath ancient oak trees. I come here when everything gets too loud, Thorn said quietly, guiding her to sit beside him. When being Alpha King feels like drowning. Sarah leaned against his shoulder, exhaustion settling into her bones. Does it always feel like that? Most days. His arm wrapped around her waist. Less so now. You make it easier. I walked out of a formal dinner and made you look weak in front of your elders, Sarah pointed out. Pretty sure I made things harder. You stood up for yourself, when I should have been standing up for you. You set boundaries. You refused to be diminished. He pressed a kiss to her temple. That's not weakness. That's exactly what a queen should do. The elders don't think so. The elders are old wolves who've forgotten what it means to fight for every breath. They've been comfortable for so long they can't recognize strength when it looks different from what they expect. His voice hardened. They'll learn, or they'll be replaced. Sarah tilted her head to look at him. In the moonlight, he looked younger somehow. Less like the terrifying Alpha King and more like the man who'd knelt before her in a packhouse dining room and called her his queen. What happened at the border? She asked softly. Really? His jaw tightened. Rogues attacked one of our outlying settlements. Killed 3 wolves before we could respond. 2 of them were children. Sarah's breath caught. Oh, Thorn. I tracked them down. My beta and I. We found them holed up in a cave, laughing about the kill, bragging about how easy it was. His eyes flashed gold. So I made sure their deaths weren't easy. Made sure they understood exactly what it means to kill Northern Territory wolves. And then you came back covered in blood and pushed me away. Because when I'm like that, when the wolf is that close to the surface, when I've just done something brutal, I'm dangerous. I didn't want you to see that side of me. Didn't want you to know what I'm capable of when control slips." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she took his hand, the one that had probably torn those rogues apart hours ago, and pressed it to her cheek. "I grew up watching my stepmother smile while she destroyed people," she said. "I know what real cruelty looks like. And killing rogues who murdered children? That's not cruelty. That's justice. That's protection. That's exactly what an alpha king should do." "You're not afraid of me?" "I'm terrified of you," she said it honestly. "You're the most powerful wolf I've ever met. You could destroy me with a word, break me with a look. But I'm not afraid you will, because underneath all that power, I see someone who's just as scared as I am. Just as convinced he doesn't deserve good things." Thorne's forehead dropped to rest against hers. "How did you get so wise? 23 years of surviving people who wanted me small." She smiled slightly. "You learn to see through masks when your survival depends on it. I don't want to wear masks with you." "Then don't." She pulled back to meet his eyes. "Show me everything. The Alpha King. The wolf. The broken parts. All of it. I can handle it." Something shifted in his expression, hope and fear and desperate need all tangled together. "The mate bond isn't complete yet. I haven't claimed you properly." Sierra's heart stuttered. "The bite." "The bite?" he agreed. "It would make the bond permanent. Unbreakable. You'd feel everything I feel. I'd feel everything you feel. There'd be no more hiding. No more walls." "Would it hurt? The bite?" "Yes, but the pain fades quickly," and after his voice roughened, "after, you'll never feel alone again. You'll always have me. In your head. In your heart. Part of your soul." "That sounds terrifying." "It is." His hand cupped her jaw. "It's also the most intimate thing wolves can share. My parents said it was like finally being whole, after a lifetime of walking around half-formed." Sarah's wolf stirred, eager and impatient. "Claim, be claimed, complete the bond. What if you see inside my head, and realize I'm not what you thought?" The fear slipped out before she could stop it. "What if the bond shows you all my broken parts in you? Then I'll love your broken parts too." He said it with such certainty that her breath caught. "Sarah, I've seen you scrubbing floors in your stepfamily's house. I've watched you tend gardens for people who treated you like dirt. I've felt your fear and your strength and your determination to survive. There's nothing in your head that could make me want you less. You don't know that." "Yes, I do." His thumb brushed across her lower lip. "Because I've been in your head, little wolf. The mate bond has been forming since the moment we touched. I've felt your thoughts bleeding through. Your kindness, your grief, your bone-deep certainty that you're unworthy of love. And every single piece of you just makes me want you more." Tears burned in Sarah's eyes. "I don't know how to do this, how to believe I deserve you. Then let me believe it for both of us." He leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips. "Let me claim you. Make this bond permanent. Prove to you that I'm not going anywhere. Ever." Her wolf was howling now, desperate and pleading. Her human mind kept spinning with doubt and fear and what-ifs. But underneath it all, she felt the truth. She wanted this. Wanted him. Wanted to stop being half-formed and alone. "Okay," she whispered. "Claim me." The words had barely left her lips before his mouth was on hers. The kiss was different this time. Not gentle or tentative or testing boundaries. This was claiming. Possessive. Consuming. His hands tangled in her hair, tilting her head back, and she melted into him like she'd been made for this moment. The mate bond flared between them, golden light exploding behind her eyelids. She could feel his emotions crashing over her like waves need and devotion, and a love so fierce it terrified her. "Mine," his wolf growled into her mind. "Yours," her wolf answered, surrendering completely. He pulled back just long enough to look at her, his eyes pure molten gold. "Last chance to change your mind." "Bite me already," she breathed. His laugh was low and dark and sent shivers down her spine. Then his mouth was on her throat, kissing and licking and finding the spot where her neck met her shoulder. The claiming spot where alpha marks were meant to go. "This will hurt for just a moment," he murmured against her skin. "Then it will be the best thing you've ever felt. I promise." She barely had time to brace herself before his teeth sank in. The pain was sharp and immediate, like lightning through her veins. Sarah gasped, her hands clutching his shoulders, her wolf surging up to meet his. And then the pain shattered into something else entirely. Pleasure. Pure, overwhelming, devastating pleasure that stole her breath and made her vision white out. She could feel him now, not just his emotions, but his very essence pouring into her. His strength, his power, his absolute certainty that she was his and he was hers and nothing would ever separate them. "I love you," his voice echoed through the bond, clear as bells. "I've loved you since I caught your scent. I'll love you until the stars burn out." The words broke something open inside her. Years of walls crumbling, years of believing she was unlovable dissolving like smoke. When he finally pulled back, blood stained his lips, her blood and his eyes were still pure wolf. On her shoulder, she could feel the mark burning, his claim, his bite, his promise etched into her skin forever. "My queen," he breathed. "My mate. My everything." And Sarah understood, finally, what it meant to be whole. They stayed in the garden for hours, wrapped around each other, exploring the bond that now tied them together. Sarah could feel him in her mind, not intrusively, but like a constant presence, warm and solid and there. When she thought something, he felt the echo. When he felt something, she tasted it like honey on her tongue. "This is insane," she murmured against his chest. "I can feel you feeling me, feeling you feeling me." "It settles," he said, amused. "Eventually, you learn to filter, to give each other privacy when needed. But right now, it's new, raw. The bond wants us to know each other completely." "What am I thinking right now?" His hand traced patterns on her back. "You're thinking that this feels too good to be real, that you're waiting for something to go wrong, that you love me but you're terrified to say it because every time you've loved someone, they've hurt you." Sarah's breath caught. "That's accurate. I also know," his voice softened, "that underneath the fear, you're happy, genuinely happy, maybe for the first time in years." She tilted her head to look at him. "What are you thinking?" "That I want to take you back to our chambers and spend the next 3 days making sure you understand exactly how much I love you. That I want to hunt down everyone who ever hurt you and make them pay. That I'm terrified I'll fail you somehow." He cupped her face. "And that, despite all of that, I've never been more at peace than I am right now, holding you." "The elders are probably losing their minds," Sarah said. "We abandoned a formal dinner. I made a scene. You threatened to replace them. Let them lose their minds. They need to understand that you're not some decorative queen they can push around. You're my mate, my equal, and anyone who disrespects you, disrespects me. I'm not your equal. I'm an Omega, who stood in front of her abusers and claimed her power, who walked out of a room full of hostile wolves with her head high, who just agreed to complete a mate bond with the most possessive, overprotective alpha king in 5 territories." His eyes gleamed. "You're stronger than you know, little wolf, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it to you." Before Sarah could respond, Lydia's voice cut through the garden. "Your Majesties? I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's been a development." They both looked up to find the head of the Queen's Guard standing at the garden entrance, her expression grim. "What kind of development?" Thorn was instantly alert, his body going tense. "A message arrived from Silvercrest, from your mate's stepfamily." Lydia's jaw tightened. "They're requesting a formal audience, claiming they have critical information about the Queen's mental stability that the king needs to hear before the claiming ceremony." Sarah's blood went cold. "But we already completed the bond, the bite." "They don't know that yet," Thorn said, his voice deadly quiet. "They think they still have time to poison the well, to convince me you're unstable before the bond is permanent." "What do they want?" Lydia held out a sealed envelope. "According to this, they have evidence that the Queen poses a danger to herself and the pack. They're asking for permission to present their case to the council, with witnesses." Sarah's hand started shaking. "It's Delilah, and whoever V is. They're not done. They're going to keep coming after me until they learn what happens when you threaten my mate." Thorn stood, pulling Sarah with him. His eyes had gone pure alpha again, cold and calculating. "Lydia, send word to Silvercrest. Tell them they have permission to present their evidence. Tomorrow night. Full council session. Your Majesty, Lydia's eyes widened. Are you sure? If they have something convincing, they have lies and manipulation, and I'm going to let them present every single piece of it. His smile was vicious. And then I'm going to destroy them so completely they'll never threaten her again. He looked at Sira, and his expression softened. Trust me? She looked at the bite mark on her shoulder, his claim, burning with power. Felt the bond humming between them, solid and unbreakable. Felt his absolute certainty that this would work. Yes, she said. I trust you. Good. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Because it's time to show Vivian and Delilah exactly what happens when you mess with the Northern Territory's queen. Chapter 9. The Reckoning. The council chamber felt like a courtroom. Sarah sat beside Thorn at the head of a massive stone table, every seat filled with wolves who would decide her fate. The elders. The Pax Beta and Gamma. Representatives from allied territories. Lydia and the Queen's Guard stood at attention behind her, but their presence did little to ease the knot in her stomach. And at the far end of the chamber, looking smug and polished and absolutely certain of their victory, sat Vivian and Delilah. This is a mistake, Sira whispered through the bond. Whatever they've brought, whatever lies they've manufactured, will fall apart the moment they open their mouths, Thorn responded, his hand finding hers under the table. Trust the process. Trust me. Elder Tobias stood, calling the session to order. We are gathered to hear evidence presented by Mrs. Vivian Blackwood and her daughter, Lady Delilah Blackwood, regarding concerns about Her Majesty Queen Sarah's fitness to serve. He looked uncomfortable with the entire proceeding. Mrs. Blackwood, you have the floor. Vivian rose, and Sarah was struck by how perfectly she dressed for this. Conservative, maternal, every inch the concerned stepmother. Delilah sat beside her in a pale blue dress that screamed innocence, her eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying. Thank you, Elder Tobias. Vivian's voice was warm, grateful. I cannot express how difficult this is for me. For us. Sira is family. We raised her, loved her, but love sometimes means making hard choices for someone's own good. Sarah's nails dug into her palms. The mate bond flared with Thorn's rage, but he kept his expression neutral. I'm here today, Vivian continued, to present evidence that Queen Sira is suffering from a severe mental illness that makes her a danger to herself and potentially to this pack. An illness we've been trying to treat for years, but which has only worsened. She pulled out a folder, sliding documents across the table. These are medical records from our pack doctor. Documentation of Sira's declining mental state over the past 5 years. Depression, anxiety, paranoid delusions, violent outbursts. Those are forged, Sarah said, her voice shaking. I've never seen a pack doctor except for mandatory checkups. Of course you don't remember. Delilah cut in, her voice dripping with false sympathy. That's part of the illness, Sarah. The memory loss. The inability to recognize when you're having an episode. This is insane. Please let them finish, Your Majesty. Elder Miriam said, her tone suggesting she was enjoying this far too much. They've traveled a long way. We should hear their full testimony. Thorn's hand squeezed Sira's so hard it almost hurt. Through the bond, she felt him calculating, planning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Vivian continued. 6 months ago, Sarah's delusions took a dangerous turn. She became convinced that Beta Thomas, my daughter's fiancé, was her mate. She began stalking him, leaving disturbing gifts, making threats against Delilah. She produced the video Thomas had shown them, Delilah's tearful confession about Sira's supposed obsession. We tried to get her help, Vivian's voice broke beautifully, but she refused treatment. And when the Alpha King arrived and showed interest in her, well, her illness latched onto that, convinced her that a bond existed where there was none. There is a bond, Sira growled, and her wolf pushed into her voice, making it deeper. The moon goddess herself. The moon goddess doesn't pair Alpha Kings with delusional Omegas. Delilah snapped, her mask slipping for just a moment before she caught herself. I'm sorry, Sarah, I know you believe it. But belief doesn't make it real. Then explain the bite, Thorn said quietly. Every head turned to him. I'm sorry? Vivian's composure cracked slightly. Thorn leaned back in his chair, his expression carved from ice. You claim there's no mate bond. So explain the claiming bite my mate bears. The one I gave her 2 nights ago, completing a bond that has existed since the moment I caught her scent. He stood, moving to Sarah's side, and gently tilting her head to expose the mark on her shoulder. The bite was still fresh, still healing, surrounded by the distinctive pattern that marked true mate claims. The chamber exploded into whispers. That's Vivian's face went pale. That could be faked, manufactured. Are you suggesting, Thorne's voice dropped to something inhuman, that I would falsify a mate bond? That I would mark someone who wasn't chosen by the moon goddess herself? No, of course not. I merely, Vivian scrambled. Perhaps you were deceived. Perhaps she convinced you through manipulation, through what? Magic? Mind control? Thorne's eyes flashed gold. I am the Alpha King. I have fought wars, killed rogues, negotiated treaties with wolves 3 times my age. Do you truly believe a mentally ill Omega could manipulate me into claiming her? Silence fell like a blade. But the medical records, Delilah tried weakly, are forgeries. A new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned. A middle-aged man in a white coat entered, bowing to Thorne. Your Majesty, I'm Dr. Raymond Castor, Chief Physician for the Silvercrest Pack. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Vivian's face went sheet white. Raymond, what are you? I was contacted yesterday by the King's investigators, Dr. Castor continued, moving to stand before the council. They asked me to verify certain medical records attributed to my practice. Records allegedly documenting Queen Sarah's mental illness. He pulled out his own folder. These records are complete fabrications. I have never treated Queen Sarah for mental illness. In fact, I have rarely treated her at all, as she was discouraged from seeking medical care for anything but emergencies. He looked at Vivian, and his expression was disgusted. The signature on these documents is a forgery. A poor one. And I am prepared to testify under oath that Mrs. Blackwood approached me 3 weeks ago, asking if I would sign off on psychological evaluations for an unnamed patient. I refused. Apparently, she found someone less ethical. That's a lie. Vivian shrieked, her composure completely shattered now. He's being paid off. The king is protecting his mate by silencing anyone who... Then perhaps, Elder Tobias said coldly, you can explain these. He pulled out his own tablet, projecting messages onto the wall behind him. The texts between Delilah and the mysterious V. Every single one, laid out for the council to see. V. Create a paper trail. Videos are best, witnesses even better. If she becomes too problematic, there are facilities that specialize in difficult cases. The Alpha King's mate bond complicates things, but bonds can be broken. The chamber erupted. Where did you get those? Delilah was on her feet, her face twisted with panic and rage. Those are private. You can't just... I gave them to the king, Beta Thomas said, standing from his position at the side table. After I realized my fiancé was planning to have an innocent woman committed to a facility she'd never escape from, just because she was jealous. Jealous? Delilah's laugh was unhinged. I'm not jealous of her. She's nothing. An Omega, a charity case who should have spent her life grateful for the scraps we threw her. And there it is, Thorne said softly. The truth, finally. Delilah seemed to realize what she'd said. Her hand flew to her mouth. I meant, you meant exactly what you said. Thorne's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. You came to my territory with forged documents, fake medical records, and manufactured evidence because you couldn't accept that the moon goddess chose your stepsister over you. Because in your mind, Omegas don't deserve good things. They don't deserve mates or power or happiness. He moved to stand behind Syrah's chair, his hands on her shoulders. But the moon goddess doesn't share your prejudices. She chose Syrah. She gave her to me, and I claimed her, willingly and joyfully, because she is stronger and kinder and braver than anyone in this room could ever hope to be. This is ridiculous. Vivian tried one last time. You're all being deceived. That bite could still be faked. The bond could be manufactured through dark magic. Enough. Elder Tobias's voice cut through her protests. Mrs. Blackwood, Lady Delilah, you have presented false evidence to this council. You have attempted to defame and discredit a queen chosen by the moon goddess herself. And based on the messages we've seen, you conspired to have her illegally committed to a facility. He looked at Thorne. Your Majesty, what punishment do you deem appropriate? Sarah felt Thorne's rage through the bond burning, absolute, barely controlled. She also felt his restraint, his determination to let her make this choice. Sarah, he said quietly, through the bond. They're yours. Whatever you want. Exile, imprisonment, execution. It's your call. They hurt you. You decide their fate. Sarah stood, her legs shaking but her voice steady. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. When I was 6 years old, she said, my mother married Vivian's son. She told me it would be good for us, that we'd have a family again, a home. She looked at Vivian. Instead, I got 23 years of being told I was worthless, of being treated like a servant in my own home, of watching the woman who was supposed to care for me teach her daughter that cruelty was currency. Vivian's face was pale but defiant. You want to know what punishment I think is appropriate? Sarah's voice grew stronger. I think you should go back to Silvercrest. Back to your pack house and your perfect life. And every single day, you should remember that the worthless Omega you tortured became a queen. That the girl you tried to break is now more powerful than you'll ever be. That your cruelty didn't destroy me, it forged me into someone strong enough to stand here and show you mercy. She paused. Because I am showing you mercy. I'm not executing you. I'm not imprisoning you. I'm simply telling you that you're no longer welcome in Northern Territory lands. You're no longer welcome at any pack event I attend. And if you ever try to hurt me or mine again, there will be no mercy. Only consequences. Silence filled the chamber. That's it? Delilah's voice was shrill with disbelief. You're just letting us go? I'm letting you live, Sarah corrected, with the knowledge that you failed, that all your schemes and lies and cruelty accomplished nothing except proving exactly what kind of wolves you are. She looked at the council. Is that acceptable? Elder Tobias nodded slowly. The Queen has shown remarkable restraint. I would have voted for execution. He looked at Vivian and Delilah. You heard Her Majesty. You have 24 hours to leave Northern Territory lands. If you are found here after that, you will be treated as hostile rogues. Understood? Vivian's jaw worked. For a moment, Sarah thought she might argue, might fight. Then she stood, grabbed Delilah's arm, and stalked toward the door. But Delilah couldn't resist one final shot. You think you've won? You think this is over? She turned, and the hatred in her eyes was pure poison. You'll never be good enough. Everyone will always know what you really are. A pathetic Omega who got lucky. And when the Alpha King finally realizes his mistake, when he finally sees through the Moon Goddess's cruel joke, you'll be right back where you started. Alone. Worthless. Nothing. The words should have hurt. Should have burrowed under Sarah's skin and planted seeds of doubt. But through the mate bond she felt Thorne's absolute certainty, his unshakable love, his conviction that she was everything. You're wrong, Sarah said quietly. I'll never be nothing again. Because even if every single person in this room turned against me, even if the Moon Goddess herself renounced me, I would still know my worth. Because I define my value now. Not you. Not anyone else. Just me. She smiled, and it was genuine. Thank you, actually, for teaching me that lesson. It might be the only useful thing you ever did. Delilah's face contorted with rage, but Vivian dragged her from the chamber before she could respond. The moment the doors closed behind them, the room erupted. Wolves were on their feet, some arguing, some celebrating, some looking at Sarah with new respect. Elder Miriam looked like she'd bitten into something sour. Elder Tobias was smiling, but Sarah barely heard any of it, because Thorne had pulled her into his arms and was holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I'm so proud of you, he murmured into her hair. So incredibly proud. I was terrified, she admitted. I know. I felt it. But you didn't let the fear win. He pulled back to look at her. You showed them exactly what a queen looks like. Strong, merciful, unbreakable. I learned from the best. His laugh was low and warm. You're going to be a better queen than I ever was a king. Impossible, she said. but she was smiling. Around them, the council continued to debate and discuss. But for that moment, in the center of the chaos, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in 23 years. Safe, loved, home. Chapter 10, The Omega Queen. 3 months later, Sarah stood in the Queen's garden, her garden now watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. The moonflowers she'd planted had taken root, spreading across the stone walls in cascades of silver blooms. Roses climbed trellises she'd built herself, their scent mixing with pine and morning dew. In the corner, an herb garden flourished, tended daily by Sarah and whoever from the pack wanted to join her. Because that had become her thing. Open garden hours every morning. Any wolf could come, work the soil beside their queen, and talk about whatever weighed on their hearts. It had started small, just Lydia and a few curious packmates. Now, 20 or 30 wolves showed up regularly, drawn by the quiet peace of growing things and a queen who listened without judgment. "Your Majesty." A young voice called from the garden entrance. Sarah turned to find Maya, a 10-year-old Omega who'd been coming every day for the past month. She carried a small potted plant carefully in both hands. "I grew this," Maya said shyly. "From the seeds you gave me. My mom said I could give it to you, if you want it." Sarah knelt down to the girl's level, examining the plant with exaggerated seriousness. "Is this a lavender?" "Maya, this is beautiful. The strongest one I've seen all season." The girl beamed. "Really? Really?" Sarah took the pot gently. "Should we plant it in the main bed? Right at the center, where everyone can see what an excellent gardener you are." "Can we really?" "You're the one who grew it. You choose where it goes." They planted it together, Maya chattering about her classes and her friends and her dreams of maybe becoming a healer someday. Other wolves filtered in as they worked, joining the morning ritual. This was what Sarah loved most about being queen, not the formal dinners or political negotiations or wearing elaborate gowns. It was these moments, making space for wolves to simply be, to work with their hands, to remember that strength came in forms beyond claws and teeth. "There you are." Thorn's voice was warm with affection. He stood at the garden entrance, still in training gear, his hair damp with sweat. 3 months, and the sight of him still made her heart stutter. "Your Majesty," Maya said solemnly, bowing like Sarah had taught her, shallow and respectful, not the deep submission of fear. "We're planting my lavender. I can see that. It's magnificent." Thorn's eyes met Sarah's over the girl's head, and the mate bond hummed with his contentment. "Mind if I steal your queen for a few minutes? Royal business." "Okay," Maya said, then leaned close to Sarah and whispered loudly, "Is it about the surprise?" Sarah's eyes widened. "What surprise?" "The one everyone knows about but we're not supposed to tell you." Maya clapped a hand over her mouth. "Oops." Thorn laughed, scooping the girl up and spinning her around before setting her down. "You're a terrible secret keeper, Maya. Go help Elder Tobias with the herb garden. He's been asking for your expert opinion." The girl ran off, giggling. "What surprise?" Sarah demanded as Thorn pulled her close. "If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise." He pressed a kiss to her temple, then her cheek, then her lips. "But you'll find out tonight. The whole pack will be there. That's not ominous at all. It's a good surprise, I promise." His hand found the claiming bite on her shoulder, healed now, but still visible, still marking her as his. "How are you feeling, really?" It was a question he asked every day, because the mate bond meant he felt her emotions constantly, knew when she was struggling even when she tried to hide it. "Good," she said honestly. "Really good." Maya's lavender bloomed. The settlement petition was approved. We're adding 50 new families to the Eastern Territory. And Elder Miriam actually complimented my handling of the trade dispute yesterday. "Did she actually compliment you, or did she just not insult you?" "She said I was surprisingly competent for someone with my background." Sarah's voice dripped with sarcasm. "So basically a love letter from Miriam." Thorn growled. "I'm replacing her." "You are not. She's learning." Slowly. Very, very slowly. Sarah pulled back to look at him. "Besides, I don't need everyone to love me. I just need them to respect the position. The rest will come." "You're too forgiving." "I'm strategic." There's a difference. She stood on her toes to kiss him properly. Now tell me about this surprise before I die of curiosity. Not a chance. You'll just have to wait until tonight like everyone else. He grinned at her growl of frustration. Patience, little wolf. Good things come to queens who wait. That evening, Sarah was escorted to the great hall by Lydia and the queen's guard, all of them being suspiciously secretive about what awaited inside. You could at least give me a hint. Sarah tried for the 5th time. Absolutely not, Lydia said cheerfully. The king would have my head. I'm the queen. I outrank you. Nice try, your majesty. But we both know you're not actually going to order me to spoil the surprise. She was right. Damn it. The great hall doors opened, and Sarah's breath caught. The massive room had been transformed. Thousands of candles cast golden light across stone walls draped in silk. Tables overflowed with food and flowers, her flowers. From the garden, the entire pack was assembled, hundreds of wolves dressed in their finest, all turning to watch as their queen entered. But it was the center of the room that made Sarah's heart stop. A raised dais had been constructed, covered in white silk and crowned with an arch woven from moonflowers and roses. And standing beneath it, dressed in formal regalia that made him look like he'd stepped out of a fairy tale, was Thorn. What is this? Sarah whispered. Your coronation, Lydia said softly. The king decreed that you've served as queen long enough without the formal ceremony. It's time the northern territories and every other territory officially recognized what you are. Sarah's hands started shaking. I'm not ready. Yes, you are. Thorn's voice carried across the hall. He descended from the dais and walked toward her, every inch the Alpha King. But his eyes were soft, full of love and pride and absolute certainty. You've been ready since the moment you stood up to Vivian. Since the moment you walked out of that council dinner with your head high. Since the moment you chose mercy over vengeance. He took her hand, raising it to his lips. Tonight, I'm not giving you a title. I'm simply acknowledging what you already are. What you've always been. Come. He led her to the dais, every wolf bowing as they passed. Sarah's heart hammered so hard she thought everyone must hear it. Elder Tobias stood at the top, holding a cushion. On it rested a crown. Not the elaborate, jewel-encrusted thing Sarah had seen in paintings. This was simpler, more elegant. A circlet of twisted silver and gold, set with moonstones that gleamed like captured starlight. Sarah Blackwood. Tobias's voice rang through the hall. You came to us as a wolf without rank, without family, without status. You came to us broken by those who should have protected you. You came to us, expecting nothing and asking for nothing. He lifted the crown. But you gave us everything. Your strength, your kindness, your determination to make this pack better, stronger, more compassionate. You have tended our gardens and our children. You have stood beside your king in negotiations and in battle. You have shown us what true leadership looks like. Sarah's vision blurred with tears. Tonight, Tobias continued, we do not make you queen. The moon goddess did that the moment she paired you with our king. Tonight, we simply acknowledge what you are. What you have always been. He looked at Thorn, who nodded. Together, they lowered the crown onto Sarah's head. The weight of it was surprisingly light, but the meaning was everything. All hail Queen Sarah Ashford, Tobias declared. True mate to Alpha King Thorn, chosen by the moon goddess, crowned by her pack. May her reign be long and prosperous. All hail the queen. The hall erupted with the chant, hundreds of voices rising as one. Sarah stood frozen, overwhelmed. Through the mate bond, she felt Thorn's emotions, pride so fierce it burned. Love so deep it had no bottom, joy so complete it felt like flying. Breathe, he murmured, taking her hand. This is real. You're not dreaming. This is your life now. Our life, she corrected, finding her voice. Our life, he agreed. Then louder, addressing the pack, my queen, my mate, my everything. I present her to you officially, crowned and claimed and perfect exactly as she is. The hall erupted again, this time in celebration. Music started, drums and strings, and voices lifted in song. Wolves rushed forward, not to challenge or judge, but to celebrate, to welcome, to honor their Omega Queen. Maya pushed through the crowd, holding up a flower crown she'd woven herself. "I made you this too, in case the fancy one gets heavy." Sarah actually laughed, and knelt down to let the girl place her gift beside the official crown. "Now I have two. I'm the luckiest queen alive." "You really are," Maya said seriously, then hugged her hard before running off to join the other children. Thorn pulled Sarah into his arms. "Dance with me?" "I don't know how to dance." "Neither do I. We'll figure it out together." They moved onto the floor, and if their dancing was clumsy and unpracticed, no one cared. Other couples joined them, Lydia with her mate, Tobias with his wife, Beta Thomas, who'd officially requested transfer to the Northern Territories and been gleefully accepted with a new partner. The celebration lasted into the early morning. Wolves danced and ate and told stories. Children ran wild through the hall, high on sugar and excitement. At some point, Elder Miriam actually approached Sarah and said in a tone that suggested the words caused her physical pain, "You've done well, Your Majesty. Better than I expected." "That's practically a declaration of love from you," Sarah said, straight-faced. Miriam's lips twitched. "Don't push your luck." But as she walked away, Sarah heard her mutter to another elder. "The king chose well. Even if she is an Omega. Progress. Slow, painful progress, but progress nonetheless." Later, much later, when the celebration had finally wound down, and the hall was empty except for servants clearing plates, Thorn led Sarah back to their chambers. "Tired?" he asked, helping her out of the formal gown. "Exhausted, happy, overwhelmed, all of it." She touched the crown, still resting on her head. "I can't believe this is real." "Believe it." He carefully removed the crown, setting it on its stand. Then he cupped her face, his thumb brushing across the claiming bite that marked her as his. "You're Queen Sarah Ashford now. Officially, permanently. Mine. Yours," she agreed. "And you're mine. Always." He kissed her, slow and deep and full of promise. "I love you, little wolf. Every broken piece. Every strong piece. Every part of you that survived hell and came out still capable of growing gardens. I love you too." She pressed her forehead to his. "Even the parts that push everyone away when you're scared. Even the parts that think being strong means being alone. Even the parts that still can't believe you deserve good things. We're a mess," he said, smiling. "We're perfect," she corrected. They stood there in the moonlight, two broken wolves who'd found each other against all odds, who'd survived cruelty and loss and trauma, and come out still believing in good things. And somewhere, Sarah thought, the moon goddess was smiling, because this messy, imperfect, absolutely perfect love was exactly what she'd intended all along. Epilogue. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the garden, one hand pressed to her stomach, the other holding a letter. The letter had arrived that morning from Silvercrest. Vivian was sick, dying, according to the pack doctor. She was begging for Sarah to come, to forgive, to say goodbye. Delilah had added a note at the bottom. "Please, I know we don't deserve it, but she's still the woman who raised you. Doesn't that count for something?" "What are you going to do?" Thorn asked, reading over her shoulder. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she crumpled the letter and let it fall into the compost bin. "Nothing," she said simply. "I'm going to do nothing. Because I don't owe them forgiveness. I don't owe them closure. I don't owe them anything except the mercy I already gave them, which was letting them live." She turned to face her mate. "They had 23 years to treat me with kindness. To choose love over cruelty. They made their choice. Now they get to live with the consequences." "No regrets?" Thorn asked, though she could feel through the bond that he already knew the answer. "None." She took his hand and pressed it to her stomach, where the tiniest flutter of new life was just beginning to make itself known. "I have everything I need right here. A mate who loves me, a pack that respects me. And soon," her smile was radiant, "a child who will never, ever doubt their worth." Thorn's eyes went wide. We're pregnant," she confirmed. 3 weeks, according to the pack doctor. "Too early to announce, but I wanted you to know first." His hands cupped her face, and his eyes were suspiciously bright. "A child. Our child. I know the elders were worried about Omega genetics and alpha offspring, But I don't give a damn what the elders think. He kissed her fiercely. You're giving me a child. Nothing else matters. It might be an Omega, Sarah warned. Like me. Then they'll be the strongest Omega in 5 territories. Just like their mother. He pulled her close, careful of her stomach. And I will spend every day making sure they know they're loved. Wanted. Perfect exactly as they are. Through the mate bond, Sarah felt his absolute certainty. His fierce determination. His unshakable love. We're going to be good at this, she said. We're going to be amazing at this, he corrected. And as the sun set over the northern territories, painting the mountains in shades of gold and crimson, Queen Sarah Ashford stood in her garden with her mate's arms around her and knew, with absolute certainty, that she had finally found what she'd been searching for her entire life. Not a fairy tale ending. Something better. A beginning.